Chapter 12. The children are almost halfway there. Today they search for the letter L. Later that morning, the children were walking among tall oak trees. The sun was almost in the middle of the sky. Gone were the kind king, the rolling green lawn, and the steep, rocky gorges. The air seemed to have lost its chill. The children found a shady place at the foot of a giant oak tree and spread out a cloth and some food. They had not eaten anything since the night before, and all of them were hungry. And there were indeed fruit trees, apple trees to be exact. Sipho climbed up to the high branches to get the best ones. Somewhere in the woods they could hear a stream gurgling. "I'll go and get water," Michael said. "I won't be long." He took a small flask and waved to his friends. Then he set off through the whispering woods to find the stream that sounded so near. Michael hadn't gone very far when he came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a small blue lake, fed by a crystal clear stream that chattered and danced over pebbles on its way to a pond. The wind whispered through the branches, and it sounded as though the leaves and trees were trying to tell him something. He strained to hear what sounds they were making, but his ears could only hear the breeze. Michael walked around the edge of the blue lake, which reflected the bright clouds in its smooth surface. When he came to where the stream fed into the pond, he knelt down and dipped his flask into the fresh, cold water. No sooner had he done so than there was a ripple in the lake, and a beautiful girl emerged from the water. A strange glow surrounded her. Michael dropped his flask, and it sank to the bottom of the lake. The girl came out of the lake, smiled lightly at Michael, and then knelt on the ground near him and looked at him. "Hello," she said, and stretched out her hand. "I'm Lila of the lake." "Pleased to meet you," Michael said, and took her cold hand in his. "I'm Michael. Do you live near here?" She had a lovely laugh. It tinkled and rippled like a bubbling stream. No, you saw me. I live in the lake, silly. I live in the water, under the water, if you like. I notice you dropped your flask. If you'd like me to show you where I live, you could follow me, and we could get your flask back." She smiled at him so sweetly that Michael wanted nothing more than to go where she would lead him, and look at her lovely face. "Okay," he said haltingly, "but I don't think I can go very deep. I don't live underwater, and I can't breathe there." He thought briefly of his friends waiting for water. Then he looked at Lila, and her laugh chased away all his cares. "Leave that all to me," Lila said. "I'd be delighted to show you where I live. Come on." He took her cold hand again, and she got up and led him slowly into the water. When the lake was up to his waist, he paused and looked around. For a moment he felt alarmed, but Lila turned to him and looked at him with such love that he followed her deeper into the blue. He began to notice that they were simply climbing downstairs, and as his head went under the water, the light merely changed, so that he seemed to be walking in a meadow where dappled sunlight glimmered through the branches of a tree. "Isn't it lovely?" Lila exclaimed. "Look, I have a meadow of lakeweed, and my fish fly through the water just as birds fly through the air." She reached out her hand and took hold of an eel as it sailed by, wrapping it around her wrist. "This is my pet, Lulu," Lila said. Michael didn't like the look of Lulu very much. She had a fierce, sulky mouth and glassy eyes. Michael let go of Lila's hand. She bent down. "Well, here's your flask," she said. "Would you like it?" "Thank you," said Michael, and took it. "So," Lila said, and turned to smile at Michael. He felt his heart would break if she stopped smiling. "Do you like it here?" she asked. "You can live with me forever, you know. I'd love to have you down here. I've been longing for a friend, someone to play with. I lured you here with the whispering rush of the stream. I knew you were thirsty, and I saw you and your friends, and I liked you. I thought you'd be the one to like it underwater. Do you like it here? Say you do. And when she said that, tears filled her pretty big eyes and rolled slowly down her cheeks. Michael wanted to stay and stop her crying and be her friend, but he suddenly thought of his 3 friends waiting for him. He felt as though the water had crept into his head and was making his thinking soggy. I kind of like it here, Lila. I never knew that it could be lovely under the lake, and yes, I might like to be your friend, but you see, I have friends who need me, and I need them, and we're on a quest, so I really should be getting back to them. I think I'd miss my life above the water very much, so thanks for the flask. I'll need that, but I suppose I'd better be getting back now. All at once, Michael was afraid that if Lila wept any more, he would never be able to leave her, so he turned his back on her and began to leap through the water toward the stairs and the shallows where he'd first come in. Behind him, he heard Lila cry out, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave. Your friends have each other. I'm all alone and lonely. Oh, please don't leave." But Michael's head was already out of the water. He took a great gasp of real air and dragged himself out of the lake. For a moment, he lay exhausted on the sand. Then he picked up the flask, which was full of water, and ran through the whispering woods to where his 3 faithful friends were waiting. "What took you so long?" Lauren asked, and Michael could see that she had been worried. "We were starting to think you were lost," Rukmini said. "The trees had begun to whisper things that sounded like, 'Look, he's lost.'" "I wasn't lost," Michael said, "but I almost was. Let's get the magic book. I'll show you what happened." So while they drank thirstily from the flask and ate bread and nuts and fruit from their supplies and from the generous trees, Michael drew. And as he drew, he talked. "This is lovely Lila of the lake, who lives deep under the water. She lured me down into her world and wanted me to live there and not come back. I almost couldn't leave, and when I did, she cried." "You had to leave," Sifo said, and patted his friend on the back. "But don't feel sad. Look at Lila," Sifo said. "She's kneeling just like a large L." "She is. Though I had to leave, she's still here in this picture, and she can live on with us in many words that we write and speak. I wish she could feel this. I haven't left lovely Lila all alone. She's with us always. She's a lovely, lovely L." Ooh, that was kind of scary. It's hard to know sometimes who's a good person and who's not in this story. If Michael had stayed, that would have made her a bad person, maybe one of Urkel's messengers. Here she forms the letter L when she's kneeling. I can't wait to find out what happens in chapter 13.